In this video, I will show you how I draw with graphite pencil, and I will attempt to give you some tips on how you can improve your drawing, especially if you are a beginner. In this drawing, you will see a lot of shading and blending, which is important in creating a realistic drawing. This drawing took me around 7 to 8 hours to finish, but if you really love to draw like me, you know that you will not really notice the time because you're enjoying every second of it. So, let's start with the tutorial. I started with shading the eyes and the eyebrow. Here, I am using a 3B graphite pencil for the brows and 2H pencil for shading around the eyes. I use 2B pencil for the iris and outline the highlights in the eyes. I use a kneaded eraser or a retractable eraser to clean up the highlights. It is important to keep your pencil sharp, especially when working on small details. I used mono-zero eraser to erase small areas. It is very useful, and I recommend it for you if you are serious about improving your drawings. Here I am using a tortillon to shade the pupil and the area around the eye. If you don't have tortillon, you can use a Q-tip or your fingers to blend as well. However, for small areas, using a tortillon is the best option. Do not press down hard as you blend. The lighter your touch, the smoother your blend will be. I start by shading the bridge of the nose with 2H graphite and shade around the bridge with 2B, making it slightly darker than the bridge area. Notice the subtle highlight in the tip of the nose and shade around it. I made a subtle gradient towards the outer edges of the nose and into the cheek. As you are working on the nose area, make sure that tones flow seamlessly into the areas that we've already done, so it is important to blend so everything flows nicely and avoid visible outlines. Now, I shade the background to build the shape of his right cheek. As I mentioned a while ago, we try to avoid visible outlines here, so I slowly shade and blend the background. Here you can see how a mono-zero or retractable eraser can make things easier, especially if you are trying to create a smooth transition between two areas. You can also use a kneaded eraser to do this. As you move along with your drawing, you will usually notice some areas that need more details. So as you can see here, I am darkening the eyebrows and adding details to the eyes and the area around it. So now we move on to the lips. His lips are thin and there are visible lines or wrinkles on it. Just look carefully at your source image. Notice where the dark and light areas are. Use light strokes to create the line and use shading and blending with tortillon. Same as what we did in the eyes, you can also use a kneaded eraser or a retractable eraser to clean up the highlights on the lips. So by now, you may notice that it's basically just a repetition or a pattern, shading and blending, creating gradients, light tones flowing into dark tones, and so on. You will also notice me using a makeup brush to blend as I find it really good in blending graphite pencil. If you are right-handed like me, it's best to always work from top to bottom and left to right to avoid accidentally ruining the already drawn part of the portrait by resting your hand on it. And for lefties, it's obviously the other way around. Similarly, you can also put a piece of clean paper under your hand to avoid smudging your drawing while you're working. In this drawing, I have already laid down the basic outline. I usually use grid to be a bit more accurate. I tried freehand before, but I admit I am not that skilled yet to make an accurate portrait with it. Anyway, I usually draw with the outline using an HB pencil with light strokes to avoid indenting the paper, as this will show up later when shading and it will ruin the drawing. Before I proceed with the shading, I make sure that my outline resembles my subject, otherwise my final product would only be a waste. By the later part of this video, you will see me using a graphite powder which I made from sharpening my 8B graphite pencil, and instead of throwing the lead, I kept them in a small jar and I pounded it with a rounded end stick until it becomes pulverized. You can also buy powdered graphite from art supply stores, but it's easy to make your own and it's actually cheaper. Hopefully you learned something, and please continue watching the video. If you have any questions, just leave a comment below and I will make sure to reply. Thank you.